The message arrived without warning. It cut through every human channel, military, civilian, even private, comes like a blade through silk. On every screen, from the lunar mining stations to the orbital cities circling Mars, the same image appeared. A tall, silver-skinned envoy wrapped in flowing robes of deep violet. Behind him floated the crest of the Galactic Concorde, a circle of stars bound by a single unbroken line. People of Earth, the envoy began, his voice smooth and cold like polished stone. You have been observed. Your growth has been unexpected, but your independence ends now. He paused, letting the silence press down like gravity. You will disarm all military vessels. You will surrender control of your planetary systems. You will accept integration into the Concorde as a Tier 4 labor species. Compliance is not optional. It is ordained. A final line scrolled beneath his image in every known human language. Respond within 12 hours, or be rendered compliant. Then the transmission ended. On Earth, cities fell quiet. In the unified Terran Alliance High Command bunker beneath Geneva, generals argued in hushed, urgent tones. Some wanted to negotiate. Others whispered of surrender. What choice did they have? The Concorde had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had turned rebellious star systems into glass and silence. But not everyone was afraid. Far beyond Earth, past the asteroid belt and skirting the icy rings of Jupiter, the UT, a cruiser Odyssey, drifted in silent patrol. Its hull was scarred from past battles, scrapes from smuggler gunships, burn marks from pirate plasma cannons. It wasn't the largest ship in the fleet, nor the newest. But it had a reputation, and its captain had a temper. Captain Elias Vance sat in the dim glow of the command deck, boots propped on the console, sipping black coffee from a chip mug labeled, "World's okayest captain." He'd just finished reviewing damage reports from a skirmish near Europa when the Concorde message blared across every speaker. His officers froze. Lieutenant Mara Chun, at Tactical, clutched the edge of her station. Ensign Ria Patel, at Comms, turned pale. Even the AI voice of the ship call sign, WISP, went quiet. Vance didn't move. He let the envoy's words hang in the air. When the transmission ended, he set his mug down. "Well," he said, voice low. "That's new." "Captain," Chun said, voice tight. "They're serious. The Concorde doesn't bluff." "I know," Vance said. He stood, stretching his back with a quiet groan. At 42, he'd seen more firefights than most admirals. His dark eyes held a glint that his crew knew well, the look he got right before doing something reckless. "They think we're primitives," he said, walking to the main view screen. Jupiter loomed behind them, a giant swirl of storms and silence. "They see our music, our movies, our history of wars, and they think we're just loud animals playing with toys." He turned to his crew. "But they missed something." "What's that, sir?" Patel asked. "We don't quit." He walked back to the command chair and tapped the open comms channel, the one that linked every ship in the Sol system, every station, every listening post. The same channel the Concorde had used to deliver their ultimatum. "WISP," he said. "Patch me through. Wideband, all frequencies." "Confirm, Captain." The eye replied in its calm, genderless voice. "You're live." Vance leaned back. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout or curse. He just smiled a slow, dangerous grin that didn't touch his eyes. And then he said, clear and calm, so the whole system could hear, "That's cute." Silence. For 3 full seconds, not a single system chirped. Not a comms beep, not a sensor ping. Even Jupiter seemed to hold its breath. Then chaos erupted. On Earth, news anchors stumbled over their words. In Geneva, a general dropped his coffee cup. At the Mars colony, workers stopped mid-shift, staring at public screens in disbelief. Aboard the Odyssey, Chun let out a shaky laugh. Sir, you just told the most powerful empire in the galaxy that their threat was cute. Vance shrugged. Truth is truth. But he wasn't just being rude. He was making a point. The Concord expected fear. They expected groveling. They expected humans to look at their massive fleets, their planet-cracking weapons, and fold like cheap tents. But humans had stared down extinction before. Ice ages, nuclear winters, plagues that wiped out billions. They'd rebuilt every time, not with perfection, not with grace, but with stubborn, messy, furious hope. And now? Now they had starships. Now they had fusion cores that could power cities for centuries. Now they had zero-point energy taps and AI-driven shields and weapons that could crack asteroids in half. All reverse-engineered from a single crashed scout ship that had tumbled into the Pacific Ocean 20 years ago. The Concord never thought to check if humans could learn fast. Vance stood again, this time with purpose. Wisp, lock onto the Concord's signal origin. Trace it back. Signal came from the edge of the system, Wisp replied. Just past the Orc cloud, one vessel. Class, Envoy class diplomatic cruiser Harmony of Order. Alone? Yes, Captain. Standard Concord practice. They believe one ship is enough to make primitives obey. Vance snorted. Of course they do. He turned to Chun. Prep the Odyssey for silent run. Full stealth. No emissions. And get me a secure line to High Command. Tell them we're not waiting 12 hours. Are we? Attacking? Patel asked, eyes wide. No, Vance said. We're visiting. He walked to the viewport, hands clasped behind his back. The stars were sharp and clear out here. No city lights, no atmosphere to blur them. Just cold, endless dark. They gave us an ultimatum, he said quietly. But ultimatums only work if the other side believes you'll back down. He turned, expression hardening. We're not backing down. Orders flew. The Odyssey's engines hummed to life, not with a roar but a whisper. Gravitic dampeners engaged. Thermal sinks activated. The ship faded from sensors like a shadow slipping between trees. As they accelerated toward the edge of the system. Vance sat back in his chair. He didn't look nervous. He looked focused. Because he knew something the Concord didn't. Humanity wasn't just surviving out here. They were learning. And more importantly, they were watching. For 20 years. Every alien signal, every stray energy reading, every fragment of debris had been studied, copied, improved. While the Concord slept in their golden towers, humans had been building something in the dark. Not just weapons, a future. And no one, no ancient empire, no silver-skinned envoy, no fleet of planet killers was going to take that away with a pretty speech and a threat. The Odyssey slid through the void. Silent and sharp. And far behind it, across the Sol system, humans began to prepare, not for surrender, for war, but not the kind the Concord expected. This wouldn't be a battle of numbers or size. It would be a battle of ideas. Of will, of the quiet, stubborn refusal to kneel. And it all started with 3 words, spoken by a tired captain with a chipped coffee mug and a grin that scared even his own crew. That's cute. The Odyssey moved like a ghost through the outer dark. Captain Vance stood on the bridge, arms crossed, eyes locked on the main screen. The Concord envoy ship Harmony of Order hung in the distance, glowing faintly like a pearl in black water. It looked peaceful, elegant, harmless. But Vance knew better. Peace was just control wearing a nicer coat. Wisp, he said softly. How close can we get before they detect us? Current stealth protocols allow approach within 5,000 kilometers. The ship's eye replied. Beyond that, their long-range grav sensors may register our warp wake. Vance nodded. Good. Keep us at 4,000. I want to see their faces when they realize they're not alone. He turned to Lieutenant Chun. Any activity on their coms? None, sir. They're just waiting. Like they expect us to come begging. Vance smiled faintly. Let them wait. He wasn't here to fight. Not yet. He was here to learn. For 20 years, humanity had been listening, watching, collecting every scrap of alien tech, every broken signal, every whisper from the stars. The crashed scout ship had given them energy cores, material science, even basic AI architecture. But it hadn't given them context. Now they had a chance to get it firsthand. Patel, Vance said. Patch into their broadcast band, quietly. I want to hear what they're saying to themselves. Aye, Captain. Minutes passed in silence. Then, faint voices crackled through the speakers, smooth, melodic, speaking in the Concorde's native tongue. Wisp translated in real time, subtitles flickering at the bottom of the screen. Primitives still silent, likely paralyzed by fear. Typical. Emotional species lack discipline. The High Council expects confirmation of compliance within the hour. Vance exchanged a look with Chun. They weren't even scanning for threats. They were bored. That was their first mistake. Their second came 10 minutes later. A small shuttle detached from the Harmony, no weapons, no armor. Just a diplomatic pod, drifting slowly toward the inner system. Probably carrying a secondary ultimatum. Or maybe a recording of Earth's surrender. Vance didn't hesitate. Wisp, deploy Drone 7. Silent intercept. A tiny black sphere shot from the Odyssey's hull, invisible to standard sensors. It matched speed with the shuttle, attached to its underbelly, and went dark dot inside the shuttle. 2 Concorde officials sipped luminescent tea, chatting about poetry. They never noticed the breach. Back on the Odyssey, data began to stream in-ship logs, internal schematics, communication codes, and something else. A full archive of Concorde fleet movements, supply routes, even weak points in their shield harmonics. Chun gasped. Captain, this is everything. They didn't encrypt it. They didn't think anyone could reach it. Vance leaned forward. Because no one ever has. He stood. Send it all to High Command. Full priority. And add this. Tell Earth to stop building walls. Start building teeth. By the time the Odyssey slipped away, the Concorde shuttle reached Mars orbit, only to find every human station dark, silent. No surrender. No response. Confusion rippled through their ranks. Meanwhile, on Earth, things changed fast. The unified Terran Alliance dropped all pretense. Factories that once built transport ships now churned out war cruisers. Scientists unlocked new uses for zero-point energy. Engineers turned asteroids into hidden bases. And in a secret bunker beneath the Himalayas, Project Janus went live. It wasn't a weapon. Not exactly. It was a network, dozens of camouflage platforms hidden in the asteroid belt, each armed with a quantum pulse cannon powered by micro black holes. Small enough to hide, strong enough to crack a dreadnought in half. But humanity's real weapon wasn't metal or fire. It was chaos. While the Concorde waited for surrender, human black ops teams slipped into fringe systems. They didn't fight. They broadcast. They hacked into Concorde comms and flooded them with Earth's culture rock music blared over battle channels. Stand-up comedians mocked the High Council. Old war films showed humans charging uphill with nothing but rifles and rage. At first, the Concorde dismissed it as noise. But noise can become a storm. On a mining outpost near Proxima, a young Velnari worker heard Johnny Cash singing Folsom Prison Blues over a broken comms line. He'd never heard music like that, raw, human, full of pain and pride. He played it again. Then again. Soon, others gathered. They asked questions. Why do they sing about prisons? What is a train? Why do they laugh when they're sad? The questions spread. Curiosity turned to doubt. Doubt turned to anger. Back in Seoul, Vance watched it all from the Odyssey. They think war is about ships and guns, he told Chun one night as they drifted near Saturn's rings. But it's about stories. Who gets to tell them? Who gets erased? He tapped a screen showing a dozen rebel uprisings flaring on the galaxy map. We're not just fighting the Concorde. We're reminding everyone they don't have to kneel. Then came the news from Mars. The Concorde had had enough. A strike fleet, 3 destroyers. 2 cruisers jumped into Mars orbit without warning. They gave no demands. No second chance. They opened fire. Colony Theta, home to 200,000, vanished in a flash of white fire. Silence fell across human space. Even Vance went quiet. For 12 hours. The Odyssey drifted without orders. Then a message came from High Command, short and sharp. You were right. No more waiting. Vance called his crew to the bridge. We don't mourn by standing still, he said. We mourn by making sure it never happens again. He pulled up a star map. The Concorde's main supply line runs through the Kuiper Belt. They send unarmed freighters every 36 hours. Loaded with energy cells, food, replacement parts. Chun understood immediately. We hit them where it hurts. Not their pride. Their logistics. Exactly, Vance said. But we don't destroy them. We steal them. He explained the plan. Use the stolen Concorde codes to mimic their signals. Trick the freighters into docking with a fake Concorde station, actually a human trap, built inside a hollowed-out comet. Once aboard, human teams would take control, not kill. They'd reprogram the ships, load them with data bombs, and send them back into the Concorde fleet silent. Wolves among silver sheep. The first raid happened 3 nights later. It worked. Perfectly. The Concorde didn't even realize their own ship had been hijacked until it broadcast a live feed of Colony Theta's final moments over their internal officer. Channel. The message was simple. This is what you did. Now watch it again. Panic spread. For the first time in centuries, the Concorde felt something they'd forgotten. Fear. Not of weapons, of ideas. Of humans who didn't break when crushed, but came back sharper. Back on the Odyssey, Vance received a new message. This one wasn't from High Command. It was from a Valmeri worker on Proxima. The text was simple. We heard your music. We remember our own songs now. Thank you. Vance read it twice. Then he saved it to his private log. He looked out at the stars, not as threats, not as territory, but as neighbors waiting to be free. The Concorde had told Earth to comply. Instead, Earth had started a revolution, and it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about showing the galaxy that even the smallest voice, when loud enough, can shake empires. Vance sipped cold coffee from his old mug. He was tired, but he wasn't done. Not even close. The silence after Mars burned was heavier than any explosion. 200,000 lives gone in a heartbeat. Families erased. Homes turned to vapor. The Concorde didn't even send a warning. They just acted as if humans were insects beneath their boots, not thinking beings with names and memories and dreams. On Earth, grief turned to steel. Factories ran day and night. Schools became training centers. Children learned to code, to weld, to pilot drones before they could drive. No one spoke of peace anymore. Not real peace. The kind that comes only after standing your ground. Captain Vance felt the weight of it all. He hadn't slept in days. Dark circles ringed his eyes, but his hands were steady. He sat alone in the Odyssey's observation bay, staring at a small, hollow image of photo from before the war. His sister, laughing on a beach in Goa. She'd been on Mars. He didn't cry. Not yet. Grief could wait. Action could not. A soft chime broke the quiet. "Captain," Wisp's voice said gently. "Incoming priority message from High Command." Vance stood, wiped his face with one hand, and walked back to the bridge. The crew was already assembled. Chung stood rigid and tactical. Patel's fingers hovered over the comms panel. Everyone looked tired, but ready. On the main screen, Admiral Cho's face appeared, sharp eyes. Gray hair pulled tight, the lines on her face deeper than before. "Vance," she said without greeting. "We found something." She pulled up star charts. A red marker blinked near Neptune's orbit. 3 days ago, our deep-range scanners picked up an energy spike Concorde signature, but weak. We sent a stealth probe. It found wreckage. The screen shifted to grainy footage. Twisted hull plates, scorched metal, the broken spine of a massive warship half buried in ice. "A Concorde dreadnought," Cho said. "Class, Eclipse type. One of their oldest. It shouldn't be out here. And it shouldn't be dead." Vance leaned forward. "What killed it?" "That's the strange part. No battle damage. No weapon marks. It looks like it just shut down. Power cores cold. Life support off. Crew gone." "Gone?" "Vanished. No bodies. No escape pods. Just emptiness." Vance's mind raced. The Concorde didn't abandon ships. They repaired them, recycled them, turned them into monuments if needed. Abandonment meant shame. And shame meant secrets. "I want to see it," he said. Cho nodded. "I thought you would. Take the Odyssey. But be careful. The Concorde has patrols sweeping the outer system. They know we're watching. Then we'll move quiet," Vance said. The journey to Neptune took 2 days. The Odyssey hugged the planet's shadow, drifting among its icy moons. When they reached the wreck, it loomed like a ghost, a mountain of dark metal, half swallowed by frozen methane. "Scans show the hull is stable," Wisp reported. "But internal systems are dead. No power. No AI. No life signs." Vance suited up. Took Chun and 2 engineers with him. Inside, the dreadnought was cold, silent, and wrong dot lights flickered weakly in some corridors. Doors hung open. Data pads lay scattered on the floor as if dropped in a hurry. In the command chamber, chairs were overturned. A half-finished meal sat on a table frozen solid. "This wasn't an attack," Chine whispered. "They ran, but from what?" "They found the answer in the ship's core archive, buried under layers of encryption so deep even the Concorde crew might not have known it existed was a log. Not military. Not official. Personal. It belonged to a scientist named Trell from a species called the Cater. Once proud. Once free. Now just another cog in the Concorde machine. The log told a story. 10,000 years ago, the Concorde didn't unite the galaxy. They conquered it. One world at a time. Those who resisted were erased, not just killed, but removed from history. Their art burned. Their languages banned. Their children raised to forget their own names. The Cater were among the first to fall. Trell had spent his life pretending to serve. But in secret, he gathered proof records, voices, images of lost worlds. He hid them in the dreadnought's core, hoping someone someday would find them, and then he and his crew fled into the void, never to return. Vance stood in the dark chamber, listening to Trell's final words. "If you hear this, you are not the first to resist. You are only the first they could not silence." Back on the Odyssey, Vance called a crew meeting. He played the log for everyone. When it ended, no one spoke for a long time. Then Patel said softly, "We're not just fighting for Earth, are we?" Vance shook his head. "No, we're fighting for everyone they stole from. Everyone they made forget who they were." He looked at his crew, tired, brave, human to the bone. "They think we're savages because we feel too much," he said. "But feeling is how we remember. And remembering is how we win. He returned to High Command with more than just data. He brought purpose. Within hours, a new plan formed, not just to hurt the Concorde to free their slaves. Using Trell's records, human scientists built something new, a device they called the Mimir Array, named after an old Earth myth about a well of knowledge. The array didn't fire lasers or missiles, it fired memory. Mounted on stealth drones, it could pierce enemy shields and send raw, unfiltered data directly into a ship's neural network, images of lost homeworlds, songs in forbidden tongues, voices of ancestors long silenced. The first test happened near the Kuiper Belt. A Concorde patrol cruiser drifted alone. Scanning for human ships, the drone slipped in close. Activated the array. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then the cruiser's lights went dark. Its engines shut down, and a message came through shaky, tearful, in broken standard. We remember. We remember our home. The ship surrendered. Not with weapons lowered, but with open hatches, with raised hands. With hope returning to eyes that had forgotten its shape, Vance watched from the Odyssey. Heart-pounding, it worked, not by force, by truth. The Concorde had spent millennia building walls of fear and lies. Humanity had just handed everyone a hammer. News spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, enslaved species began to whisper, to dream, to remember. In shipyards, workers left their stations. In barracks, soldiers dropped their guns. On occupied worlds, crowds gathered in silent protest, holding up symbols of their lost cultures, old flags, ancient scripts, family crests. The Concorde tried to shut it down. They jammed signals, executed rebels, declared martial law. But you can't jail an idea. You can't burn a memory once it's been reborn. Back on Earth, Project Prometheus began. Not a weapon. A promise. Self-replicating nanoforges launched into the asteroid belt. Given raw rock and solar power, they could build a fully armed frigate in 17 days. 1 became 2. 2 became 10. 10 became 100. While the Concorde counted fleets, humanity was building a future that could build itself. Vance stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, watching the first new ship Dauntless power up its engines. Built by machines, crewed by volunteers, named after human courage. Chun came beside him. They'll come for us soon. Full fleet. No more warnings. Vance nodded. Let them. He thought of his sister, of Trell, of the 200,000 on Mars. This wasn't revenge. It was refusal. Refusal. To let cruelty be the final word. Refusal to let silence win. The stars outside were no longer just points of light. They were eyes. Watching. Waiting. Wondering if this strange, loud, messy species from a blue-green world could do what no one else had dared. Say no and mean it. Vance touched the screen, where the new fleet glowed like embers in the dark. Tell High Command, he said quietly. We're ready. And somewhere, deep in the heart of a dying empire, a single human phrase echoed. That's cute. Only now, the galaxy was starting to understand what it really meant. The Concorde did not waste time. 3 days after the first rebel ship surrendered to a memory, the High Council made its move. A fleet unlike any seen before gathered at the edge of human space. 200 vessels. Led by the Sword of Unity, a command dreadnought larger than Earth's moon base. It carried planet-cracking warheads, gravity shears, and enough firepower to erase the Sol system from the star charts. They sent no message this time. Only silence, and silence. In war is the loudest warning of all. On Earth, cities emptied. Children were moved to underground shelters. Factories ran on skeleton crews. But no one ran. Not this time. Because while the Concorde built bigger guns, humanity had been building something else. allies, from the Velnari hive mind in the Proxima dust fields to the free Cater fighters hiding in nebulae, whispers turned into plans. Small ships patched, armed, and angry slipped through the dark, gathering like storm clouds on the edge of the Concorde's blind spots. And at the center of it all was Captain Vance. He stood on the bridge of the Odyssey, now flanked by 5 new frigates from Project Prometheus, all named after human ideas: resilience, irony, stubborn, hope, and fuck yeah. Chen reviewed sensor data with tight lips. They're forming a wall, 5 lines deep. If they push forward, nothing short of a black hole stops them. Vance didn't look worried. They're thinking like empires always do. Straight lines, clear paths, total control. He tapped the star map. But war isn't chess. It's street fighting in the rain. He turned to Patel. Send the signal. She nodded, fingers flying. Across the outer system, hidden in ice fields and asteroid shadows, the Mimera rays powered up. Not just on drones now, but built into every human ship. Every rebel vessel that had joined the cause. This wasn't a battle of metal, it was a battle of minds. The Concorde fleet entered the Kuiper Belt at dawn, Earth's dawn, though no one there saw it. The sky was gray with tension. Then the first wave hit, not with weapons. With sound. A billion voices flooded the Concorde, come songs in dead languages. Lullabies from burned worlds, speeches from leaders long executed. The Mimer arrays didn't just send data. They sent feeling, grief, rage, love. On the sword of unity, officers froze. Some wept. Others tore off their insignias. One cruiser veered off course. Broadcasting. We will not burn another home. Chaos spread. The Concorde tried to shut it down. But you can't firewall a memory that's already inside your head. While their lines wavered, the real attack began. Not from the front, from behind. Human stealth ships built with Concorde tech stolen from freighters slipped past outer defenses and hit the supply lines. They didn't destroy engines. They hacked navigation. Sent warships drifting into each other. One frigate, Irony, flew straight into a Concorde destroyer's docking bay, then unleashed a swarm of repair drones, reprogrammed to melt shield generators from the inside. The destroyer went dark in minutes. Elsewhere, the Velnari used their hive mind link to overload. Concorde neural comms with pure emotion so intense it forced pilots into unconsciousness. The Cater fighters, flying ships shaped like ancient birds of prey, struck with precision, targeting only weapons. Never lives. It was messy. It was brilliant. And it was working. Back on the bridge, Vance watched the battle unfold. His ship danced between enemy fire like a boxer avoiding punches. Chun, he said, launch the final drone. She hesitated. Captain, once it's out there, we can't call it back. I know. She entered the command. Far ahead, near Pluto's orbit. A small pod detached from Hope and activated. Inside was not a weapon. It was a broadcast. The full archive of Trell's records, every stolen world, every silenced voice, every lie the Concorde had told for 10,000 years. And it didn't just aim at ships. It aimed at the galaxy. The signal shot outward at light speed, beaming into every system, every planet, every listening post the Concorde had ever built. For the first time in history, the truth was free. On 1,000 worlds, slaves looked up. On 1,000 ships, crew members turned to each other and asked, "Is this real?" The answer came in the form of silence, then rebellion. One by one, Concorde outposts went dark, not destroyed, but abandoned. Workers walked out. Soldiers laid down arms. Governors vanished. The empire wasn't falling. It was unraveling. On the sword of unity, the High Enforcer himself, a towering figure named Valkyr, screamed orders into dead comms. His fleet was breaking apart. Half his ships no longer answered. He turned to his second-in-command, eyes wild. How can primitives do this? The officer, a young Cater female named Lyra, looked at him without fear. Because they reminded us we are not primitives, she said. We are people. She pulled a hidden blade and cut the main power line. The sword of unity went dark. The battle ended not with an explosion, but with a whisper. The Concord fleet stopped fighting, not because they were beaten, because they no longer believed in what they were fighting for. Vance ordered a ceasefire. No one fired. Across the void, ships hung in silence, like breath held after a storm. Then, slowly, one by one, Concord vessels lowered their weapons. Some broadcast surrender. Others just drifted, lights off, as if mourning something lost long ago. Back on Earth, people stepped out of shelters, looked at the sky, waited. In Geneva, Admiral Cho stood before the Global Council. It's over, she said. They're done. But Vance knew better. He stood on the bridge, watching the drifting Concord ships. It's not over, he said quietly. It's just changing. He opened a channel not to High Command, but to every ship in human and rebel space. This is Captain Elias Vance of the UTA Odyssey, he said. To every world listening, every voice that's been silenced, you are not alone. And you never were. He paused. The Concord told us to comply. We said no. Now it's your turn. Not to fight, but to build. To remember. To be free. 1,000 replies came in. From the Volnari. We sing again. From the Cater. Our wings are open. From a dozen nameless worlds. Thank you. Vance leaned back in his chair. He was tired, but for the first time in years. He felt something else too. Hope. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that grows in broken places and refuses to die. The war wasn't won with guns. It was won with stories. And humanity had just given the galaxy back its own. On the view screen, the stars no longer looked cold. They looked like beginnings. The Concord did not fall with a bang. It faded like an old dream upon waking quiet, confused and full of regret. Within weeks of the battle beyond Pluto, their empire crumbled not from fire, but from silence. Ships that once enforced the High Council's will now drifted without orders. Governors on 100 worlds stepped down, some handing power back to elders their ancestors had been forced to forget. Factories that built weapons began repairing homes instead, and at the center of it all stood Earth, not as a conqueror, but as a witness. Captain Vance stood on the surface of the moon, near the Sea of Serenity. He wore no uniform, just a simple gray jacket and boots scuffed from too many walks through too many war zones. Around him, delegates from dozens of species gathered beneath a clear dome, breathing air mixed for a dozen different lungs. This was the signing, not of surrender, of rebirth. The new charter, drafted not by one power, but by many laid out simple rules. No world could be ruled without its people's voice. No history could be erased. No species could be ranked above another. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Vance watched as a Volnari elder, her skin shimmering like morning dew, pressed her hand to the agreement stone. Beside her, a Cater warrior, wings folded tight, did the same. Then a methane breather from the Orion Rim, a crystalline being from the dust clouds of Vega, and finally, Admiral Cho for Earth. All equals, all free, a young delegate barely more than a child. From a world once known only as Labor Colony 342, approached Vance. His eyes were wide, his voice soft. Why? He asked. Why did you do it? You could have hidden. You could have given in. The Concord would have left you alone if you just bowed your head. Vance looked at him for a long time. Then he smiled, not his sharp, dangerous grin, but something softer. Because someone had to be the first to say no, he said. And if no one says it, then no one ever gets to be free. He looked past the boy, past the dome, to the blue-green marble hanging in the black sky. Earth, small, fragile, alive. We've spent our whole history fighting each other, Vance said. But when something bigger came, we saw what mattered. Not borders, not flags, just people, just the right to choose. The boy nodded slowly. Then he pulled a small box from his pocket and handed it to Vance. Inside was a piece of carved wood, dark, smooth, shaped like a bird in flight. My grandmother made this, he said. She said it's what her people used to give to those who helped them remember. Vance took it gently. Thank you. Later that night, the celebration began, not with speeches, but with music. Someone played an old earth guitar, acoustic, simple, warm. Others joined with flutes of bone, drums of stretched hide, voices that had not sung in centuries. And then, from a speaker near the edge of the dome, a song started. We are the champions. My friends. Vance laughed out loud. He walked over to the sound system and poured a small bottle of whiskey into paper cups. He offered one to Lara, the cater officer who turned against the Sword of Unity. She sniffed it, then took a sip and nearly spat it out. What is this poison? She coughed. Freedom, Vance said with a wink. She rolled her eyes. But she didn't put the cup down. Across the dome, humans and aliens sat together, sharing food, stories, broken translations, and quiet laughter. A vulnerary child danced with an old Martian engineer. A crystalline diplomat tried and failed to eat a slice of pizza. It was messy. It was human. And that, somehow, was the point. The next morning, Vance returned to the Odyssey. The ship was quiet. Most of the crew had taken shore leave. Only Wisp remained active, running low-power diagnostics. Captain, the AI said as he entered the bridge. You have a message from High Command. Let me guess, Vance said, leaning against the console. They want to give me a medal. Actually, Wisp replied, they offered you the position of Supreme Commander of the new Galactic Council. Vance snorted. Tell them I'm busy. With what, sir? Teaching a cater kid how to play chess. And maybe fixing that old guitar. He walked to the viewport. Earth rose over the lunar horizon, glowing in morning light. They think we won because we built better ships, he said softly. But we won because we remembered what it means to be kind, to be stubborn, to laugh in the face of fear. Wisp was silent for a moment. Then, would you say that to the history files? Vance shook his head. History will write itself. I just want to make sure the future has room for everyone to tell their own story. Over the next months, human-built academies opened on dozens of worlds, not just to teach engineering or tactics, but poetry, music, philosophy, and the art of asking questions. On Earth, schools taught children not just about atoms and stars, but about Velnari dream songs and cater, wing dash dances. And the phrase, that's cute, became more than a joke. It became a symbol. Of defiance, of courage wrapped in calm. Of the moment a tired species looked at an empire older than cities and said, you don't get to decide who we are. Years later, long after Vance had retired to a small house on the coast of Ireland, a young historian found him walking the cliffs. She asked him what he thought was humanity's greatest strength. He looked at the ocean, then back at her. Hope, he said. Not the loud kind. The kind that shows up when everything else has left. The kind that says, we're not done yet. He paused. And maybe our sense of humor. You can't scare someone who laughs while reloading. She wrote that down. And somewhere, in 1,000 classrooms across the galaxy, students read those words and smiled, because the Concord had been wrong. Humanity wasn't a threat because of their weapons. They were a threat because they believed truly, deeply, stubbornly, that every life mattered. And in a universe that had forgotten that truth, That belief was the most powerful weapon of all. The stars no longer looked cold. They looked like neighbors dot and Earth. Once just a pale blue dot, now shown as a beacon, not of power, but of possibility dot, because sometimes all it takes to change the galaxy is one person, one ship, and 3 simple words. That's cute.